Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of DogCatFox and Friend. I'm the friend, he's DogCatFox. Wowie, wow, wow. And we're here to bring you the digest of news that I otherwise found interesting over the course of the week. And it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It's a bit too warm for my liking, but I guess that's what my rinky-dink air conditioning unit is for, when the time permits. And it's not, that thing is a hassle to set up because you have to get the little thing to fit in the window frame, but it doesn't quite fit in the window frame. So you have to try to do some crazy engineering to make it fit and then be able to close the window enough that the heat gets pumped out without coming back into the room. But then for the sake of the broadcast, I have to disassemble the whole thing because I can't have an AC unit going on in the background. And these are all really serious problems, guys. Serious first world problems. Anyway, who's joining me on this beautiful Saturday afternoon? The Alexander, good afternoon. Mike R, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Keeverdam, good afternoon, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the link to the GoFundMe for our friend Angela Arriaga. Guys, at the top of the chat box, there's a link up there. Please take a look. Please take a look at it. Sometimes my speaking overruns my brain. If you would, as the opportunity occurs, please take a look at that link. Angela is trying to start up her home-based business, so if you can donate, please do. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the link. Mike Savage, Blarg, John Traxon, good afternoon. Who else is here? Unfair Ophelia, hello. Shady Grin, hello. The Blakester, hello. Adam Nixon, good afternoon. JPS, hello. Kiro Soldier, hello. And I think that's everybody. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello. And make yourself known as time goes on, and I'll do my best to say hello. Oh, Simon Willikins, hello. So it's been a fairly busy week, I suppose, all things considered. Earlier this morning, just as a note, I participated in a super secret thing. I guess it wasn't super secret. I defaulted to it being super secret until I could feel more comfortable talking about it publicly. It's not earth-shattering per se, but I think it will be of interest to the Midnight's Edge in the Morning crowd on Monday. So I'm going to offer that up as a potential supplement to box office news. So not to bury the lead or anything, but keep it mysterious. So if you're curious as to what I was up to earlier this morning, you will potentially find out on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. And that'd be Monday, 9:05 a.m. Pacific Time, noon 05 p.m. Eastern Time. There's a plug for that. But let's get on with the schnews, unless I have anybody else in the chat here. Oh, Mansquatch, good afternoon. And Mr. X51, hello. Yeah, well, let's get into the really important news. Guys, a lot of really important things happened this week. And if ever there was something that's going to change the face of the world as we know it, it's going to be that we now have a diabetic Barbie. Yes, if your world was not complete enough already, we now have a diabetic Barbie. This joins such really necessary Barbies as Down syndrome Barbie. There was Deaf Barbie at one point. She came with her own hearing aids. As far as I know, they have not yet produced an Ebola Barbie, but, fingers crossed, knock Formica someday. Mattel's new Barbie doll is a type 1 diabetic with an insulin pump and glucose monitor on her arm. The new brunette Barbie is the latest in a line of dolls the American toy giant has rolled out following criticism that the doll did not represent real women. I hate to tell anybody who's complaining about this, the doll has never represented real women. Real women do not possess the bodily proportions of your classic Barbie doll. And if they did, it would be some kind of genetic deformity. But anyway, last year, Mattel released the first blind doll. In 2023, it began selling a Barbie with Down syndrome, and the year before that, it released a Barbie with hearing aids. Yes. Others in the range include a Barbie in a wheelchair and one with a prosthetic limb. All of the limbs are prosthetic. Mattel has said it hopes the latest addition to the Barbie range will help young people living with type 1 diabetes feel more confident. Okay? The condition, which causes a person's blood sugar level to become too high, affects more than 450,000 people in the UK. I'm sure it's much larger in the US, given the eating and dietary habits of my fellow Americans. British model Lila Moss, daughter of Kate Moss, has been collaborating with the company on a personalized doll in her image for months. You know, I would love to collaborate with somebody on a personalized doll in my image, just for the heck of it. Somewhere out there, I'm looking at Andy Masterson for some reason. The 22-year-old, who has had the condition since she was 12, has been replicated in a blonde Barbie with a continuous glucose monitor on her right arm, an insulin pump on her left thigh, and a personal diabetes manager device in her handbag. Well, thank goodness. The company's mainline doll with type 1 diabetes also has all the medical gear of Moss's, but is brunette instead of blonde, and wears a polka dot navy skirt set instead of a black dress. After the announcement, Moss told Vogue, quote, "I have such fun memories of being at my grandma's house and playing with a Barbie Malibu dream house as a child. Raising awareness for type 1 diabetes has always been really important to me, but I think creating this Barbie has also been a sort of healing experience for that little girl." So you were incapable of playing with a Barbie before there was a diabetes Barbie and enjoying that? Okay. The model, who has worked with high-end brands including Versace and Burberry, has already inspired others by showing her CGM and insulin pump through her work, including taking her Omnipod pump to the 2022 Met Gala. Oh yes, I think we all recall where we were when Kate Moss's daughter brought her Omnipod pump to the 2022 Met Gala. I have that memory burned into my brain. Quote, "When I first started going out and doing these things, I got so many messages from people saying that seeing me helped them or their children feel more proud and represented," Moss said. "I'm so happy I can do this through my work." Well, okay. But diabetes Barbie, everybody. Diabetes Barbie. How about Incel Ken? Says Keeverdam. That would be something. What would you dress Incel Ken in? And how would you differentiate Incel Ken physically from another Ken? I suppose it would have to be some sort of like, you either have to go the 97-pound weakling angle or like the basement-dwelling neckbeard angle, maybe? I don't know. What is the classic incel? I don't know what that is. Eagle, good afternoon. Anybody else I missed? Corey Suzuki, hello. Now, here's a question. And Corey Suzuki, obviously, I know that you've been clamoring for this for years. Where is Brain Cancer Ken? We need Brain Cancer Ken. Right? You should lobby Mattel because you need to feel represented. Where's Brain Cancer Ken? I'd be all for Brain Cancer Ken. You know, with a little tiny subtle scar on his scalp somewhere, you know, just enough. But is otherwise just a normal Ken doll. Something like that. Eagle, I've got brain cancer. Okay, well, on the one hand, I certainly hope you're joking. On the other hand, if you're not joking, talk to Corey Suzuki. Or at least talk to Corey Suzuki's dad. They're keeping it under control for now. Okay, well, good gravy, man. I'm sorry. I'm glad it is the case they're keeping it under control. I'm not meaning to make light of brain cancer. That's not what I'm trying to do. But what else can you do? Corey Suzuki, I really should. Where's my cancer representation? I know. Is there a cancer Barbie? Is there a cancer Ken? Lester's Skeptic Tank Obsessions. Yeah, I noticed it's Disabilities Pride Month. I am miffed by the fill-in-the-blank Pride Month. Yeah, is every month taken now for an overriding pride of something? Are there any months left that aren't already taken up by pride something? Because if there's like one opening, we should figure out something for that. You know, or have it like be a catch-all. Big Dave 1066. How about transgender sparkles? Can't. Oh man. You know, that is one thing that they haven't approached it. I'm kind of surprised they haven't. I think that might be a bridge too far, even more for Mattel. And Keeverdam Kenser. Oh, Keeverdam, how dare you make light of such a serious... Oh my gosh. Malachi D. Wildman. Wilfred Brimken. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we need a Wilfred Brimley doll. If they're not going to do like Diabetic Ken, at least give Wilfred Brimley his due. At least. But, okay, Eagle, do you have like a GoFundMe or something? Is there something I can do to help? Man, you know, between myself and a friend of mine I talked to just today, our fathers are in various stages of medical distress. Of course, they're each very old at this point, but still. And so I've got that a lot on my mind lately, but anyway. No, actually, I'm doing okay. Well, I'm glad for that. I'm glad for that, Eagle. And I hope that continues to be the case. Of course, if there's any way that I or anybody here in the community can help out, if the time comes, just let us know. Alan Thyler, thank you so much for the happy, smiley DogCatFox. Oh, DogCatFox.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, there's a Sinatra Says DogCatFox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. For Andy Masterson to make Brimken. Yeah, there you go. Wilfred Brimley, does he have like diabetes testing kung fu action? Like you squeeze his legs together and he like tests his diabetes? Okay, we've spent far too much time on that story. Let's move on to something else. That is okay. Now that was a feint. I'll admit I played that up as being very, very serious, and it's not really serious. So let's move on to something that is mightily serious, and that's Trump is not a clown. I should know. This is from the Washington Post, guys. The Washington Post, where democracy dies in darkness. Donald Trump is not a clown. I should know. Real clowns bring joy to the world, not chaos to Washington. Tim Cunningham is the board president of Clowns Without Borders. Okay, wait a second. A nonprofit that performs clown shows for communities facing hardship. Okay, you'd think he'd appreciate the fact that I'm laughing at the very idea that I find humor in some things, but I'm sure they do good work. Allegations that President Donald Trump is a clownish figure are not hard to come by. Political strategist James Carville referred to Trump's administration, the clown show. Referred to Trump's administration, the clown show. It should be as the clown show, not the... I at least appreciate, and I'm assuming that the Washington Post recreated the author's text verbatim. So, warts and all, I can kind of appreciate that. Juliet, thank you so much. Good evening, Scribalite and chat. Well, good evening, Juliet, and thank you so very much for the donation. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good evening or morning, I suppose, because if you're donating in pounds sterling, then I'm assuming you're 9 or 10 hours ahead of me. Something like that. So you're up late or early. Either way, thank you. James Carville referred to Trump's administration, the clown show, after Homeland Security Secretary Kristi L. Noem gave an incorrect definition of habeas corpus during a Senate hearing. In response to the president retreating from both his hefty tariffs plan and his nomination of Ed Martin to be U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, yeah, those scandals sure lingered. MSNBC commentator Lawrence O'Donnell, who has always been right about everything ever, called the president a humiliated clown. And when the president made himself the focal point of laughter in June by hosting a birthday military celebration to a lackluster crowd in D.C., hundreds of demonstrators across the country participated in Kick Out the Clowns protest. Kick Out the Clowns protests? I remember the No Kings protest. I don't recall Kick Out the Clowns protest. Do you guys remember Kick Out the Clowns? Maybe I missed that one. Which they described as a nationwide counter-circus to the president's tacky parade. But none of this qualifies Trump for such a title. I am a clown and board president of the nonprofit Clowns Without Borders. I'm here to set the record straight. I'm waiting for the punchline. I have performed as a professional clown for 24 years. Clown, capital C, is a valuable and varied art form. Pantomimes, acrobats, magicians, dancers, stand-up comedians, vaudeville artists, and jugglers are all examples of artists who incorporate clown, capital C, into their work. Whether you know it as clown, capital C, or not, you've likely seen it. From stage clowns, lowercase c, such as Bill Irwin, to the characters of Cirque du Soleil created by masters such as Michelle Matlock and Mookie Cornish, from pedagogical ensembles such as Pig Iron or Spy Monkey. I tried, guys. I tried. From pedagogical ensembles such as Pig Iron or Spy Monkey to healthcare clown, lowercase c, organizations such as the Laughter League and Healthy Humor, clown, capital C, is huge. Yes, now Bill Irwin, I am aware of. I've been aware of Bill Irwin since the Don't Worry, Be Happy music video from Bobby McFerrin, because Bill Irwin was in that. He was also in Legion, the sort of tangential X-Men TV show on Fox, and a whole bunch of other things. An amazing actor, amazing physical actor, everything. Cirque du Soleil, never been to one. I know about that. But Michelle Matlock, Mookie Cornish, Pig Iron, and Spy Monkey. Can't say I've had the pleasure. Clown demands years, if not a lifetime, of study. Consider the physical virtuosity of Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, or the impeccable comedic timing of Mr. Bean. What's more, clown is not an invention of the modern era. Several ancient indigenous cultures revere a sacred clown figure. For example, the... can't pronounce it, but he parentheticals it. The Sioux people celebrate the Heyoka, an honorable community member who uses humor to shed light on societal problems. And for those of you who are White Wolf tabletop role-playing aficionados, you may recall the Ragabash. Yes, the Ragabash from Werewolf the Apocalypse, who served a similar function in Guru society. And if you don't know about that, it's fine. I'm a huge nerd. All clown, capital C, shares the common values of healing, empathy, and reflection. Our work touches people in need of joy everywhere. I've witnessed the smiles that clowns, lowercase c, bring to the faces of people in hospitals, war zones, refugee camps, and homeless shelters. In May, I traveled to Beirut to work with local clowns, lowercase c, to share levity and playfulness with children living under the constant threat of bombardment. After our shows, their teachers told us that they saw a life, quote-unquote, in their students' eyes that they've not seen since before October of 2023. This area of clown, capital C, is called humanitarian clowning, lowercase c, which Clowns, uppercase C, Without Borders has specialized in for more than 30 years. CWB has 13 operational chapters around the world. Our budgets are small, but our reach is broad. We perform for thousands of people living in refugee camps, but we can also craft an act for an audience of one. Sales pitch, advertisement sales pitch. In rural Haiti, I watched as a child receiving medical care without pain medication to clean second-degree burns on his back laughed through the procedure because he was distracted by a clown, lowercase c. I've seen hundreds of Rohingya children dance with an ensemble of clowns, lowercase c, while their homes in Myanmar smoldered in the background. Clowns, capital C, are more than children's birthday party performers. We help people relax, heal, and prompt others to think differently about the world. Just before the 2010 Just before the 2010 Haiti earthquake, CWP was invited to perform in a communal section of Port-au-Prince called Martissant. Two warring gangs controlled the area, but both groups wanted their children to see the clowns, lowercase c. We were granted access to safely perform for both gangs and their children, a collective recognition that no matter who you are, you want your children to experience joy. Yet our joyful work has been diminished into an insult. Every election season, the word clown, lowercase c, resurfaces to compare tumultuous Washington politics to a circus. Political commentators and social media users are not the only ones who wrongfully sling this jibe. Clown, capital C, is used by almost everyone to belittle those seen as foolish or incompetent. The more we mistreat the word, the more we lose understanding of a sacred art form. Let's find a better metaphor to despise and depose fascism. Keep clown, capital C, out of Trumpian comparisons and, for that matter, all politics. Offer clown, capital C, the respect it deserves and invoke us for good, in alliance with other artists, activists, and humans who believe in a better, happier world. For centuries, clowns, lowercase c, have been uniting people in laughter, levity, and creativity. That's what real clowns, lowercase c, have to offer. If you're still stuck on the broken comparison ingrained in our national dialogue, here's an alternative. Try buffoon. Try buffoon. Huh. You know what You know what? I had to check because I was pretty sure, but I wanted to make sure. You know what buffoon is a synonym for? Can you guys guess what buffoon is a synonym for? I know you could. I'm going to pull a Mr. Rogers. I knew you could. So he's not a clown. He's another word for clown. But anyway, there you go, guys. Stop calling Donald Trump. Stop calling all politicians a clown. I mean, this is the author. I'm not saying that you should only not call Donald Trump a clown. I'm saying that you shouldn't use clown at all in politics, but I'll headline my article specifically citing Donald Trump and not political jargon in general. But anyway, Resolute Germ, thank you so much. One more reason to not like clowns. Yeah, clowns are scary enough. Clowns are scary enough. There was this horror movie from many years ago now. I'm sure it's like forever ago now. It was called Clown, and it was a guy who was cursed, and he started becoming a physical clown. It had some body horror stuff to it. It didn't quite carry the concept far enough to really make it a great movie, but you know, the first half hour or so were kind of cool. Not for the faint of heart, but yeah. Other than that, hey, you know, if he and his organization go around the world making children happy, I'm not going to begrudge that at all. But this is an advertisement wrapped in an asinine complaint, as far as I'm concerned. But hey, to each their own, right? Right. Let's see. A click sound, says Advocatus. Buffoon is an African clown. Oh, thank you, Annalyn. We learned something new today. I don't have a, you know, I should have a the more you know stinger at this point. There's a lot of stingers I should have at this point I keep talking about, like having an applause one or like a more you know kind of thing. I used to have, I do have this. Knowing is a constant source of disappointment. There's always that. I made that myself. All by myself. Because I'm smart. I made something. I made something else today. Let me pull that up real quick just for fun. So my YouTube friend Script Doctor, who has been in quite a few debates in the last like 72 hours or so, regarding a particular plot point in the new Superman movie. He was like, and I won't tell you what that is, although this might be a minor abstract spoiler for that. It's been whether or not one should be trustworthy of Lex Luthor, given something that he says or does in the film. And Script Doctor comes to me and says, hey, with all the debate going on about this thing in the movie and Lex Luthor being the guy to say that it's so, he says, I don't have any Photoshop skills. Do you remember that I Believe in Harvey Dent poster from Dark Knight? You should do one of those for Lex Luthor. And I was like, ooh, that's a good idea. And so I came up with this. So it may make another appearance on Midnight's Edge in the morning on Monday, just because I'll probably show it off there too. But you get a little sneak peek, such as it is. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly what this is referring to. Because a lot of people are like, oh no, James Gunn has ruined the canon forever. And other people like, do you really think that's what's going on? And there's this whole argument now. Big nerd argument. That's not really a news story so much. I just wanted to show off. That's all. But also I just saw in the chat, Fostonia. Good afternoon. All right, let's move on to other stories. We have other stories. Important stories. How about an actual important story? Or maybe? Federal judge halts indiscriminate immigration arrests in L.A. Now, you might ask yourself, golly gee, didn't the Supreme Court just recently say that district judges can't do stuff like this anymore? Well, it's not. It's not a total and absolute nationwide injunction. It's targeted to a specific area. I guess that's the difference. Let's see what the details are, and we'll think about it a bit. A federal judge issued 2 temporary restraining orders on Friday that blocked the Trump administration from conducting indiscriminate immigration arrests in the Los Angeles area and from denying detainees the right to consult with a lawyer. The orders mark a significant legal setback for the federal government's aggressive immigration raids that began last month. I'm not so sure how significant it is because in nearly every instance, one of these speed bump injunctions hasn't lasted more than a couple of weeks before they've been overturned on appeal or overridden by another court. So I guess we'll see. Judge Mame E. Frimpong, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, of the U.S. District Court of the Central District of California ruled that the government's roving patrols, unquote, is that what they are? Without reasonable suspicion, violate the Fourth Amendment's protections against unlawful searches and seizures. She also found that denying detainees access to legal counsel violates the Fifth Amendment. Okay, now on that last one, can't say for sure, but roving patrols, without reasonable suspicion, you see, as far as I understand it, that would have to be argued on a case-by-case basis. You can't just say that every instance of an arrest is violating the Fourth Amendment. It would have to be, well, did they have reasonable suspicion? And the other thing, too, you have to remember, and again, I'm not a legal expert, but I know at least this much, is that immigration enforcement has a far looser threshold they have to meet for detaining and arresting people that they either suspect and or have passingly good evidence may be in the country illegally. So you don't, with the immigration guys, they don't need a warrant to arrest you if they can articulate reasonable suspicion in some way, shape, or form that you're in the country illegally and may escape custody if you're not arrested on the spot. Of course, if you're in the country illegally, it's pretty easy to verify that and then everything's cool. But anyway, the ruling came in response to a lawsuit filed by immigrant advocacy groups. You mean illegal immigrant advocacy groups. This is something that I've been harping on for years. Stop dequalifying that word. Immigrant just means that you moved from one place to another. It does not denote means or motivation by which it happened, just that you have. That's why we have those qualifiers in front of the word legal or illegal. It really helps to clarify things. So let's be honest about what we're talking about here. filed by immigrant, quote-unquote, advocacy groups led by the ACLU of Southern California and Public Counsel, which documented widespread racial profiling and unconstitutional stops targeting Latino communities. Okay, and again, those would have to be adjudicated on a case-by-case basis. The judge sharply criticized the federal government's defense, stating the evidence showed that agents disproportionately targeted people based on race, language, and location, such as bus stops and day labor sites, often detaining even U.S. citizens. Yeah, I mean, why would, in Southern California, why would you often find ICE agents at the same kinds of locations, surrounded by the same kinds of people in Southern California when dealing with illegal immigration? It's obviously racial profiling and racism. It's not that that's where illegal immigrants often are. I mean, there's a balancing act here between, oh, I'm being unfair, or I'm going to the places where we know more likely than not we're going to find people that are here illegally. I mean, if you're following patterns, is that some form of illegal or unfair discrimination? I don't know. The order requires ICE and other federal agencies operating in Los Angeles County to stop using racial profiling as a basis for arrests and to ensure detainees can access lawyers. Again, you would have to prove that that is what's happening in individual cases. An accusation like that requires more evidence than just... Anyway, local leaders, including Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, praised the decision as defense of constitutional rights and American values. The ruling will remain in effect for up to 10 days, pending a fuller hearing, setting the stage for a broader challenge to the Trump administration's immigration enforcement tactics in immigrant communities. Wait a second. What do you mean immigrant communities? You can't... What kind of assumption is that there's actual communities of immigrants? I mean, that would presuppose that you know where they live, all collected together or something. But that's racial profiling. God, jeez. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, guys? I don't know. Mr. X51, the thing is that if it was Democrats who were doing this, these people would applaud, but because it's Republicans, it's not okay. Yeah, go back to Clinton and Obama and the other Clinton, and they played up needing a stronger immigration policy and being tough on immigration and so on in the past, up until it became unfashionable and it became a wedge issue between the parties. Yeah, I don't see this restraining order lasting much longer than the 10 days of its clock. Because again, each one of these cases, if someone has been individually discriminated against, if the law was broken in some way, shape, or form, you have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. You can't just say a blanket restraining order. You can't do it because I suspect or you are alleged to be doing this thing in every single case, and therefore you are not allowed to arrest anybody if you can't show previous evidence elsewise. It's like, yeah, that's not going to last. Holy cow, Faustonia, thank you so much. It's very generous of you. I've been seeing reports of a pot growing operation getting busted for undocumented, unaccompanied immigrant child labor going on, and there are fewer traffic jams on LA freeways. Not sure what to believe. Yeah, that was something that came out yesterday. I don't have the full story on that yet, because I've seen conflicting things, but the storyline as it goes, as I understand it right now, is that there was a pot growing farm that was busted by ICE and other law enforcement. And on this farm, they had some children, EIEIO, and these children were working, or at least they're presumed to have been working, or at least been around a pot growing operation. Gavin Newsom, governor of California, decried this as chasing children or, separating children from migrant workers and everything else. And then it was revealed that, well, it was a pot growing operation. And then it was revealed that the person who owns the pot growing operation is a donor to Gavin Newsom, at least as I understand it. This is what is alleged, as far as I know at this point. So it was all kind of a big mess for Gavin Newsom, decrying an operation being stopped that was allegedly taking advantage of child labor and was a pot operation. Might have been a legal grow. I don't know. California is legal out there. So maybe it was a legal operation, but it's also, unseemly to a lot of people to let, children be helping to grow drugs. But yeah, that is what I heard. As far as the LA traffic jams clearing up, I have seen memes about that. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's actually been measured yet, but I'd be happy to find out if it is true. Advocata says 8 kids total, 8 were unaccompanied. Oh, great. Well, if that's true, yeah, not the best look for Gavin Newsom to be decrying law enforcement operations when apparently his donor, again, allegedly, is benefiting from child labor on a pot grow operation. Kind of a messy situation. Gavin Newsom has this tendency lately and for a long time of just kind of putting foot firmly in mouth. But Advocate Scribelight, if they're indiscriminately stopping people, how can it also be discrimination to do it? Advocatus, stop. You're turning into an English major. You need to stop that. Stop it. Just stop. Stop doing it. But moving on. What shall we do next? Hey, you like the Secret Service? Doesn't that this immediately bring about a sense of intrigue and mystery? Well, let's talk about the Secret Service a year after Butler. A year after Butler, how a near assassination. I don't know. I have a feeling that the family in the crowd of Corey, and I always mispronounce his name, so I'm not even going to try because I'll probably screw it up, but Corey probably felt like that wasn't a near assassination. It sure felt like an assassination. But anyway, how a near assassination led to an uneven search for accountability in the Secret Service. I remember watching the Senate testimony of the head of the Secret Service at that time and how she was just absolutely raked over the coals, and deservedly so. I also watched, and I did a stream on this, where the interim Secret Service head came out and spent a lot of time at his podium letting everybody in the world know just how sad and depressed and anxiety-ridden and so on that the local FBI branch to Butler were as a result of this. And he was looking for sympathy. He was so fishing and expressing sympathy, and that we should all be feeling bad for the people in charge of the president's security in the area in which he was almost killed. It was something else. But anyway, 1 year after the near assassination of Donald Trump, it's Corey Compentiore or something. I always screw up his name. Competore. I feel like a jerk when I do it, but Anyway, 1 year after the near assassination of Donald Trump, a deep frustration has set in at the Secret Service over the agency's response to the security failures of that day. In interviews with CNN, a dozen current and former federal law enforcement officials and lawmakers describe an overall lack of accountability, especially for top Secret Service officials and those agents in Trump's detail during the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, last July. That includes Sean Curran, the top-ranking agent on Trump's detail that day, who has since been promoted to director of the Secret Service. Well, see, now I'm still a little fuzzy on who slipped up the most that day, because maybe the article will tell us. Because I remember watching the testimony and hearing who is responsible for what part of things, because a lot of stuff was purportedly passed on to the local authorities, and that the Secret Service kind of just did a trust but didn't verify job on that. Several congressional investigations and federal reports, including the Secret Service's own analysis, found multiple failures, including communication breakdowns with local police, who spotted the shooter and confronted him on a nearby roof before he took aim at Trump. There was also all the civilians and passerby who were yelling and screaming at the cops for minutes ahead that they saw a guy on a roof with a gun and nobody did anything. That part is still a little goofy to me. 10 days after the rally, Kimberly Cheadle, the then director of the Secret Service, and I'm going to assume a decidedly DEI hire, resigned amid scrutiny over the security lapses. Since then, only 6 Secret Service personnel have been disciplined, issued short suspensions without pay, a decision that has felt inconsistent to many at the agency. Quote, "None of those operational people have been held accountable. Some were even promoted," said one former senior agency official, who, like others, spoke on condition of anonymity to preserve relationships with former Secret Service colleagues. The majority of those who have faced any kind of discipline are from the agency's Pittsburgh field office, sources said, fueling a sense among some that the office was scapegoated for the failures of higher-ups. I could believe it. Outside the Pittsburgh field office, just one low-ranking person from Trump's security detail and one counter-sniper deployed that day have been issued suspensions. At least 2 of the 6 are appealing the suspensions, and so far, not one Secret Service employee has completed any proposed discipline, according to a source familiar. Not with the matter, not with the situation, just a source familiar. So like a source familiar, like their black cat or something? And if you get that joke, you might be a little witchy. Amid the fallout over the Butler rally, the agency has also seen a significant loss of institutional knowledge and expertise as a number of high-ranking officials have left, fueling concerns over a potential brain drain at the Secret Service, sources said. Oh, don't worry, the brain drain started at least as of the Biden administration, where they started promoting people to positions of authority who obviously did not have the wherewithal to do the jobs that they were given, so long as they looked the part that pleased the sexists and the racists. But anyway, Secret Service leadership last week received a subpoena from Senator Rand Paul, the Republican chairman of the Senate's Homeland Security Committee, asking for records regarding who in the service has been disciplined over Butler. 3 sources familiar with the subpoena told CNN. One of the sources told CNN that the subpoena was dropped after the Secret Service quickly turned over records Paul was seeking. Oh, okay, so he subpoenaed the things and then he was given the things. Like, okay. Paul's office did not respond to multiple requests for comment. A Secret Service spokesperson did not comment on the subpoena or reply to multiple requests for comment for this story. Transparency. In a press release put out by the Secret Service on Thursday, Curran said that his experience from Butler has been top of mind. Oh, was that intentional? Because it feels a little. I mean, if it was intentional, there's some gallows humor for you. Curran said that his experience from Butler has been top of mind as director, and, quote, "The agency has taken many steps to ensure such an event can never be repeated in the future," unquote. I understand you can't necessarily give away all of your secrets and how you would do things differently in the future, but you could at least specifically address what failed at Butler and what should have been done instead. Let's see if we get into that. Feelings are still raw among current and former Secret Service agents about what went wrong on July 13th, 2024. Well, I'll say the same thing now as I did the day it happened. Because here's the thing. My sister and I were on our way home from visiting our parents when our mother called, or actually texted me, to say something about the president was just shot. And I was like, what? And so fortunately, we had my sister's smartphone there, and so we turned on YouTube, and I went to Agenda-Free TV, because I knew they'd be covering it, and we watched in absolute shock at the replay of the video and everything. And my first thought was, why didn't they have all the rooftops covered? Because I didn't know anything about the layout of the fairgrounds or nothing. All I knew was there was someone who had an elevated position that allowed them to make that move. Wherever it was, whatever the structures were, the layout of the buildings, I had no idea. But all I knew was it's one of the little things I've learned, such as it is, from TV and movies. When they're scoping out an area before a big speech takes place, they always check to see where are the possible angles of attack. And then they cover those or secure those in some way, shape, or form to make sure that nobody can get up there. So they lock the doors, they put people on rooftops, and on and on. So how the heck did this guy get to wherever he was and be able to take the time to set himself up and take aim and so on without that area already having been scoped out and locked down by either the Secret Service or the local cops? That's my first question. That's what I want to know. Let's see if the article says. Given the failures in communication and coordination that led to the near assassination of Trump and left one person dead and two in critical condition, some sources say any agent involved in security that day should have been immediately placed on leave. That honestly would have been my thought, is that everybody needs to be taken off the job, set aside, and questioned thoroughly before giving them a chance to be Secret Service agents again. However, the crush of a busy campaign calendar, coupled with the concern Trump would be more comfortable with a detail he knew, pushed the agency to keep those agents working. But if you have really substantive, I said the thing. You know what that is? If you have substantive reason to believe that the current security detail has such flaws in it that it would be able to allow such a thing to occur in the first place, your solution to this is to continue having those people protecting a presidential candidate and former president. You know, I don't know if I would care so much. If I was the president of the United States, if I was Joe Biden, I'd say I'm not so much concerned with Donald Trump's feelings as I am with his bodily integrity at this point, so we're going to switch up teams, just to be sure. That's what I would have said, regardless of whether Donald Trump wanted it to happen or not. Well, I'm not familiar with these guys. Yeah, well, obviously they're not doing their job. I'm surprised Trump put up with it either, but anyway. Congressional reports as well as internal reports from the Secret Service and Department of Homeland Security all highlighted a breakdown in communication that left Trump's detail in Butler unaware that local officers had spotted the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, and initially confronted him on a roof less than a minute before he got off a clean shot at Trump. There was also confusion over who was in charge of securing the area where Crooks took aim, and why no visual barriers were installed around the rally to prevent long-distance shooters. The service's anti-drone technology also failed the morning of the rally, and one officer even retrieved a radio that would connect him to locals on the ground. Never retrieved a radio. You know, I don't know. That many failures occurring on that day under those circumstances, I assume it does happen where, you know, when it rains, it pours. I don't know. That seems like an awful lot of parts of the machine to break down on that day to let that happen. I'm not trying to promote any conspiracy theories here, but I'm telling you, there's just something really kooky about all the tumblers that had to line up that day to unlock that attempt. Communication failures extended to a lack of intelligence sharing. Isn't that the same thing? A topic that the Government Accountability Office is currently investigating. Okay. Just weeks before the Butler rally, the FBI obtained intelligence about a new alleged plot by the Iranian government to kill Trump. The intelligence specified that the Iranians posed a, quote, long-range, unquote, threat to Trump, meaning a potential sniper. Oh, well, without context, I might think that that's a time span reference and not a distance to target reference, but okay. But some senior leaders at the Secret Service, including the lead agent in Pittsburgh, were unaware of that intelligence until after Butler, another former senior agency official told CNN. Well, here's the thing. Whether the Iranians are after you or not, cover all elevated positions should be a default, regardless Civilians were pointing this guy out to people minutes before anything happened, before the cops even did anything. A Senate report faulted Secret Service for not requesting a counter-surveillance unit, a group whose specific job is to find suspicious actors like crooks. Well, thankfully, the untrained civilians did it for you. That responsibility fell on the agents assigned to Trump's detail, according to a source, given their knowledge of the Iranian threat. Okay. And I mean this in the sense of it is irrelevant for the sake of this situation. Who cares about the Iranian threat? There are some default basics that you do to secure an area, regardless of what country or, lone wolves may be after a guy. Why keep... What does that got to do with anything? Another federal source told CNN that the sum in the Pittsburgh office, were made aware of concerns over long-range threats against Trump, but not the Iranian threat. Well, here's the thing. If the long-range threat was an Iranian, or a Czechoslovakian, or a Indonesian, what would your strategy be in difference between those three? I have to ask. The nation of origin or motivation behind the long-range threat has what to do with securing areas of elevated position. I'd really love to know that. The source added that because Crooks was a lone wolf and has no connections to Iran, that information is somewhat irrelevant when it comes to who should take blame for failures that day. I agree. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter. Again, the means and the motive are irrelevant at the time that it... A lot of finger-pointing, obviously so. Following his committee's report on Butler in September, then Homeland Security Committee Chairman, Michigan Democratic Senator Gary Peters, told CNN that his panel heard, quote, a lot of finger-pointing, unquote, when they pressed Secret Service agents about who was in charge the day of the rally. Quote, that should be a very clear answer, and the problem is, there is no answer, said Peters. That was astonishing to us. We could not find one point of contact who said, this was the person in charge, he added. Well then, maybe everybody needs to be fired then. I mean, that's pretty much it. Who was was there anybody there? I hate to ask this. Was there anybody there with the title agent in charge? Because I know I don't mean to sound condescending, but if you have the title of agent in charge, I think the buck, at least temporarily, stops with you. But anyway, in April, the agency issued a memo clarifying that the safety of a site is ultimately the responsibility of the agent leading the detail of the protectee, according to sources who read the memo and described the contents. Wow, what? Can you believe that, guys? The agent in charge. Oh, sorry, Eagle. Eagle has corrected me. I apologize. I left out a very, very particular word. The special agent in charge. Yes, the special. In this case, the short bus special agent in charge. Did it really take the committee a long time to determine who was responsible? Okay. Under the new policy, Curran, who led Trump's detail at the time, would, in theory, have been responsible for the failure at Butler, according to sources who read the memo. Okay. Admittedly, I am not an expert historian on the Secret Service, but I would have thought, as your average layperson American citizen, that after this much time of the existence of the Secret Service, and that it has been the case that on more than one occasion in modern history, a president or presidential candidate has been targeted and or injured by a would-be or, depending, successful assassin, that the Secret Service would have a fairly well-defined hierarchy of command. Why does that suddenly sound like it's never even been thought up before? Oh, we've never considered it before. Gosh, who is in charge in an event for a presidential candidate like this? Obviously, there's never been any kind of threat like this to a presidential candidate before, or a sitting president before. Another source familiar with the memo questioned whether the policy would truly solve the problem of who was ultimately in charge, since it still allows for significant responsibility to fall on a field office prior to an event, the source noted. Whoa, somebody's revving their engine outside. I don't know if you heard that, but that was sudden and loud. Quote, the Secret Service established a new policy to clarify the lines of accountability and responsibility for protective operations, a spokeswoman for the Secret Service told CNN in April. Quote, the Secret Service continues to evaluate and implement changes based on these reviews' shared findings in order to ensure safe and secure environments for our protectees, unquote. One former senior agency official told CNN that the failures from Butler, quote, to appropriately design a security plan for an outdoor event had nothing to do with resources or intelligence, unquote. I tend to agree. Butler was not the Secret Service's first rodeo under those conditions in any way, shape, or form. Everybody should have been suspended and reviewed and interviewed, and whoever held the title special agent in charge should have been the first one to go. And then you go upwards to say, okay, when was the last time there was a performance evaluation of everybody? What was the training regimen or refresher courses and so on? Then you work your way up the ladder. And the director of the Secret Service at the time, it was something else that she didn't immediately resign after this occurred and then give testimony. Instead, she gave testimony and pretended like she was going to keep her job, and then she resigned. That was something else. Instead, the former official said, quote, the team on the ground didn't apply the most basic principles of line of sight, communication, and frankly, the subsequent evacuation wasn't executed properly, unquote. I hate to be a DEI conspiracy theorist here, but in this case, I am. For some, there is not the same level of coordination and communication among senior agency leaders as there has been. Quote, I would say the Secret Service is in a worse position now than they were before Butler, the second former senior Secret Service official said, referring to the agency's preparedness for another assassination attempt. Following the shooting, Secret Service leadership fought with members of Congress over the need for swift discipline, telling lawmakers repeatedly that they wouldn't rush to assign blame and would go by the book. Quote, the finger-pointing piece got in the way of figuring out who did what and what the actual breakdowns were, unquote. Representative Glenn Ivey, a Maryland Democrat who was on the House panel investigating Butler, told CNN this week. In the end, nothing really matters? In the end, just one low-ranking agent on the Trump detail who worked the Butler rally was recommended for a period of suspension. 2 Trump detail supervisors have been promoted, most notably Curran, who now runs the agency. Another agent on Trump's detail now oversees internal investigations and compliance. One supervisor later received a role running Eric Trump's detail, according to one source. Quote, Donald Trump detail supervisors reviewed and approved the plans for the Butler rally, a current federal law enforcement official told CNN. Quote, if they felt something was wrong during the walkthrough, they fix it then. That is literally their whole job and the point of a final walkthrough, unquote. A year later, the Secret Service doesn't face nearly the same level of intense scrutiny as it did in the weeks after the shooting. Crazy, huh? Quote, I haven't seen anybody on the Hill actually take a look at where things stand, which is a little ironic because when you have a switchover from one administration to the next, this would have been an easy time to do it, Ivey said. A new director. Since Curran became director, the Secret Service has rejected multiple requests from CNN to interview him. It is not clear that Curran has ever testified under oath before members of Congress. He is not listed among the more than 50 transcripts generated during the congressional reviews. Neither Ivey nor Representative David Joyce, an Ohio Republican who also served on the House panel that investigated Butler, could recall if the panel interviewed Curran. So, let me get this straight. They didn't take time to interview everybody involved on the detail that day. Okay. Curran's promised overhaul of the Secret Service got off to a rocky start, according to some sources. One of his first visible moves as the agency's leader included a $2 million recruiting ad produced by movie director Michael Bay. Great. The ad included a photo from moments after Trump was shot, appalling many current and former law enforcement officials who were stunned the agency would try to rebrand their biggest failure in 4 decades into a celebration of heroism. I hadn't seen this ad. That does sound idiotic, doesn't it? Under Curran's leadership, the Secret Service has made a priority of pushing for more recruits. In just the first few months of 2025, the agency saw a 200% increase in applications to join, bringing in 15,000 more applications than the previous year during the same period, according to numbers released by DHS. Though some agents also quickly soured on 2 top aides in the beginning months of Curran's directorship, sources familiar told CNN. Wait, that doesn't sound like a full sentence. Though some agents also quickly soured on 2 top aides in the beginning months of Curran's directorship, sources familiar told CNN. That maybe I'm reading that incorrectly. It doesn't sound like a complete sentence. It sounds like the beginning of a... Anyway, the aides were brought in as advisors with the intention of taking on other roles later. According to some sources, both were viewed with skepticism within the Secret Service over their qualifications and whether they'd been tasked with jobs beyond the scope of their experience. Boy, sometimes DEI doesn't go anywhere. Or it could be nepotism. You know, nepotism is just another form of DEI after fashion, or leads to a similar outcome. It can. One resigned this spring, while another remains in a top job in the agency. You won't name any of these guys again. I guess that's the Secret Service part. Others CNN spoke to were optimistic about the service's future and the changes put in place after the Butler rally. That includes a dedicated branch for drone support and establishing more streamlined communication protocols with local officers, initiatives that were set up under acting director Ronald Rowe, who stepped aside when Curran was appointed by Trump and has since left the agency. Quote, "We formed a new division called Mission Assurance Division," or MAD. Okay. Is the person in charge of this, do they have a metal gauntlet and, you know, have a cat next to them as they pound the desk and telling people what to do? Gadget. Anyway, to come in and have oversight and give recommendations to see how we can fix the things that did happen, said Derek Mayer, the former deputy special agent in charge for the Secret Service's Chicago field office. Quote, "There's a new policy that states who has command authority, and it specifically states who is in charge up to what point, whether it's going to be the special agent in charge of the district or the special agent in charge of the detail," said Mayer, who now works for a private security company. Oh, okay. He doesn't work with the Secret Service anymore. Okay. Mayer also highlighted, quote, "policies put in place to ensure clear lines of accountability, also sharing that with local law enforcement and ensuring that there is one joint command post for us and locals," unquote. What? It beggars belief that they had absolutely no process for this beforehand. And no structure, no hierarchy, no plan, no guidebook for how to do an outdoor event with a political candidate. It doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, it's like the entire agency has just been held together with bubblegum and baling wire for the last, 20, 30 years or something. We never thought to look at the roofs before we did an outdoor event. Golly gee. Well, now that we know better, we're going to set up a policy where there's like 2 or 3 levels of accountability before anybody really has to take accountability. It could be the special agent in charge of the district, or it could be the special agent in charge of the detail, or it could be the special agent in charge of refreshments. It really all depends on the circumstances. Asked if he thought there had been accountability at the Secret Service for the failures at Butler, Representative Joyce, the Ohio Republican, said Cheadle's resignation was one means of accountability. Well, yes, that was one means of it. Sure. Shouldn't be the only one. Quote, you have to rely on a change in the culture, and hopefully Director Curran is bringing those types of things, Joyce told. Hopefully? Okay, are you oversight or what? Was there a list of changes that had to be made that you demanded or that were promised, and is he fulfilling those things? Even if you can't talk about them publicly? Hopefully? You got your fingers crossed, you got your hands put together, knock Formica, you got your rabbit's foot around your keychain or something. Like, what? Okay. That was a frustrating read. That was a frustrating read. Boy, oh boy. Man, it's like Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works 100% of the time. Or just call that Secret Service. There you go. Get a new men's cologne called Secret Service. We hope it works. Wouldn't that be a great tagline? Secret Service, cologne for men. We hope it works. There we go. There we go. That perfect. I got to make an ad for that now. If I can make an ad for Lex Luthor, I can make an ad for Secret Service men's cologne. I'll have to figure that out. I'll try to figure that out in the near future. Juliet, good morning. The assassination of the Gray. Oh, I thought we were talking about the article. No, we're talking about the assassin of the Gray. I thought something else was happening. Illegal aliens are all foreigners. Judge declares you cannot profile foreigners. Makes perfect sense. Well, yeah. Or just like, hey, do you have your ID on you? You know, I was asked for my ID once by a police officer. I found out later that they were someone had gotten away and they were just checking things. And I'm just minding my own business, walking down the street. Police officer says, "Excuse me, can I see your ID, please?" And I was like, "Sure," because he has every right to ask for identification. And I didn't have any reason to resist that because it's like, yeah. And I showed him my ID and he was like, "Thank you." And that was it. It's all that needed to happen. You know, I mean, at worst, you are inconvenienced. If your feelings get all hurt over being inconvenienced briefly, then I don't know what to tell you. You know, if an officer detains you for the sake of verifying something and you have handcuffs put on, I can imagine having handcuffs put on you when you haven't done anything wrong. That can be a crappy thing to have happen. But again, at worst, it's an inconvenience. You know, it's just the way things are. Let's see. Red Feather One. Don't forget to include a woman's Secret Service perfume line. Well, I mean, I could just say Secret Service, perfume for women. We hope it works. I don't know. Let's see. And assassination is my vocation. Ooh, very poetic. Speaking of holy cats, Assassin of the Gray, whose vocation is assassination. Thank you so much. The judge is an anchor baby from Ghana. How does a 3-year judge have authority to make these declarations when SCOTUS already ruled district judges could not? She should be censured and investigated. Well, here's the thing. The judges struck down effectively a universal injunction. Right? Like a district judge in Delaware cannot halt an executive action that covers the entire nation. They were kind of cagey with this because the Supreme Court hasn't really had to deal with these kind of questions as much before. So they first said, yeah, universal injunctions don't make any sense. This judge is the district judge for the territory in which she issued the restraining order. So that's the exception. That's the loophole. So it's a localized ruling. It is not a universal nationwide ban. And so these are the kinds of incremental tests of the law and the tests of the judicial power that are going to constantly and very quickly be sent back up to the Supreme Court to make a decision like, okay, can a district judge just put the kibosh on every single possible law enforcement action to take place in a jurisdiction on the belief that something might be happening in some or more cases without looking at cases individually? So every time that these guys test the limits of their powers now, all they're doing is asking the Supreme Court to further refine and possibly further restrict what they can do. That's part of the process. That's how it works for just about everything else. So, you know, the Supreme Court set the boundary. Hey, if you're a district judge in Delaware, your decisions better affect Delaware, because that's about it. You can't make a universal nationwide injunction from one district judge across the entire nation, you know, because then you have basically district judges becoming dictators for sovereign states of the union and how they conduct themselves or wish to conduct themselves, amongst other things. So that's why. That's why it happened, or at least that's the test that they're making against the Supreme Court's decision. That's, again, layman's understanding of the situation. Read by nature. She sounds like a foreign asset. Oh, I don't know. Red Feather 1. Scribely, did they ever explain why the flat roof the shooter was on too steep for the agents to be on? Yeah, I never, again, there is no reasonable explanation to me as to why that roof did not either have an agent or a law enforcement officer on top of it to keep watch, or there weren't measures taken to prevent people from being able to access that roof in some meaningful way. That doesn't make it just this sort of like, oh gosh, shucks, we never knew, could never possibly imagine such a thing. You know, sharp as a tack. No, we never saw anything wrong with the man behind closed doors. That kind of jargon just doesn't wash. It does not wash to me at all. That is bargain basement. Lame. Again, I'm sitting there in the car with my sister on the way home watching the video on her smartphone, and this happens. And my very first question was, why didn't they have all of the lines of sight covered for such a thing? It was an outdoor event. There's got to be only so many elevated positions. Why didn't they have them locked? I mean, the proof was in the pudding. They obviously did not have them all locked down. You know, unless, and I remember saying this at the time, I said, unless this guy took out a law enforcement officer before taking the shot, like he made his way onto a roof or disabled or somehow removed a guard in order to breach security like that, unless that happened, which would still be even worse, but, you know, not as good either. But otherwise, yeah, there's an absolute and total failure on the part of the Secret Service. And law enforcement in general, local law enforcement. It's insane. Unless it wasn't a failure. But that is a conspiracy argument for another time. Let's talk about, do I want to do this? How long is this one? So, pardon me one second. That's what she said. How long is this one? This is relatively short. We'll do this one, but there was one I wanted to get to, but I'll get to this one first, to get out of the way. Speaking of legal stuff, let's talk about our most recent Supreme Court justice. Actually, did she come before or after Barrett? I don't. No, actually, maybe it's the second to last. Yeah. Anyway, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson says she fears for U.S. democracy. Oh, well, I'm glad she's thinking about politics. You know, rather than maybe studying, you know, legal history and jurisprudence or something so she can make informed opinions in Supreme Court cases. But anyway, the justice has emerged as one of the court's sharpest critics. Oh, man. Okay. Ever since the affirmative action decision back in 2023, where she basically had a flame war with Clarence Thomas in Supreme Court decisions on that case. Sharpest critics. Sharp is not the adjective I would use. But anyway, the justice I'm assuming we're talking about Brown Jackson, emerged as one of the court's sharpest critics, issuing more dissents than any colleague during the Supreme Court term that ended last month. Yeah, well, always a contrarian, I guess. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson said Thursday that the, quote, state of our democracy, unquote, keeps her up at night, echoing a theme that has animated some of her recent public appearances and fiery dissents from recent decisions. Quote, I'm really interested to get people to focus and to invest and to pay attention to what is happening in our country and in our government, unquote, Jackson said. Wow, I mean, that sounds more like an activist than a attempting to be neutral judicial oversight, but okay. The nation's first black female justice, absolutely meaningless, and the most junior member of the court did not elaborate on the point. I mean, who needs elaboration from a Supreme Court justice on how they reach their conclusions on things? I mean, explaining the details of where their mind is at on a subject. That's the Supreme. Nobody needs to hear that from the Supreme Court. Nobody expects that from a Supreme Court justice, you know. Elaborate and insightful commentary and explanation. No, it's fine. Did not elaborate on the point, which came during a wide-ranging live-stream discussion with U.S. District Judge Jane Magnus Stinson at an event sponsored by the Indianapolis Bar Association in Indiana. Okay. Over the past 2 terms, the High Court's conservative supermajority has dramatically expanded the power of the presidency. The power of the presidency has been expanded year over year for decades. But anyway, giving Donald Trump and other presidents, how about just saying giving the executive or giving the president broad immunity from official acts taken in office? Yeah, when was that decision made, by the way? Was that made... That was made under Biden, wasn't it? Oh my God. Scaling back the ability of lower courts to block policies through nationwide injunctions and greenlighting many of Trump's precedent-shattering executive orders for now, even as lawsuits over their legality make their way through the court system. Yeah. And they've also ruled against him several times. You going to talk about that? No? Okay, Jackson has emerged as one of the court's sharpest critics, issuing more dissents than any other justice during the term that ended last month and strongly denouncing aspects of several rulings for Trump. On Saturday, at a different event in New Orleans, Jackson called the conservative bloc's decisions, quote, an existential threat to the rule of law, unquote. So she just sees herself as, what, the righteous opposition? She leveled the same charge in a June 27th dissent to the majority's ruling to scale back the power of lower courts to issue nationwide injunctions that have blocked much of Trump's agenda. The majority ruling is, quote, profoundly dangerous since it gives the executive the go-ahead to sometimes wield the kind of unchecked, arbitrary power the founders crafted our Constitution to eradicate, Jackson wrote. I hate to tell you this, Justice Jackson, that's Congress's responsibility to restrain. Your responsibility is to interpret the law as written and congressional intent as codified. I don't know what to tell you. You want to try to make up for Congress what they won't do or have acceded to the president. It's not your role. I mean, trust me, I do not agree with the amount of power that that Congress over time, not just in the last 5 years or something, but over time have abdicated to the executive, and the amount of power that has promulgated over those years to the executive. Where, the president, any president, doesn't matter, can just issue an executive order and it's effectively treated like new law. Shall we talk about DACA? Wasn't a fan of that. I'm not a fan of royal edicts coming out of a president under a constitutional republic, but that's where we're at. And Trump has the exact same power that Biden had, that Obama had, and on and on and on and on and on. if you want things to change, it's up to Congress to rewrite the law to restrain the executive. But if you think, Justice Jackson, that you are there to effectively do Congress's job for them, well, then you're in the same position that the president is right now with some of the powers that have been given to him. So, Jackson only briefly touched on the court's work during the talk Thursday, which was mostly about her life. She told the audiences that her favorite song is Cheryl Lynn's Got to Be Real, and that she watches Survivor and enjoys fried chicken. Will I be canceled for quoting Justice Jackson on that? Okay, Magnus Stinson asked Jackson how she decides to write a dissent. Quote, "It's because I feel like I might have something to offer and add, and I'm not afraid to use my voice," said Jackson, noting that she's not offended by other justices taking issue with her opinions because she has a quote-unquote thick skin. Really? People should really go back and read the opinions on the affirmative action case, and specifically Jackson's comments about Clarence Thomas. Magnus Stinson also said she noticed that Jackson, a liberal, had sometimes aligned with conservatives, Justice Neil M. Gorsuch, on some opinions, which was unusual. Yes, how dare you cross the aisle? Quote, "You end up aligning with different justices at different times because cases vary," Jackson said. "Sometimes you'll find someone you wouldn't normally be aligned with who thinks about this issue the same way that you do," unquote. And yet you see yourself, or at least have articulated yourself, as some sort of like stalwart opposition to the conservative bloc. Except when you're not. Okay. There are 6 conservative justices and 3 liberals on the Supreme Court. When Magnus Stinson told Jackson that the current makeup of the court means that you are sometimes in the minority, the justice interrupted with a sarcastic, "sometimes," and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha. Jackson said one of the things that surprised her most since becoming a justice 3 years ago were the traditions and formalities of the court. Quote, "I didn't realize how formal the court really is." So, okay. Here's a little tip. I know. It might sound simple, might sound common sense. Before you go out to get a job, you should research the job you're getting into. Before you apply for a job at a particular company, you should research the company you're applying to. And before you become a Supreme Court Justice of the United States of America, you should have some working knowledge of the policies, formalities, and traditions of the Supreme Court of the United States. I don't know. Maybe I just expect too much from people who occupy the highest offices in this country. Obviously I do. Obviously I do. I didn't realize how formal the court really is. I kind of thought when justices go into conference, they let their hair down a little bit. No, Jackson said. Yeah, because, the importance and significance of the job that you hold, the words that you use, and the decisions you make don't require, if not demand, constant professionalism. No, such a thing could not occur to anybody going into the Supreme Court of the United States. Okay. Boy, that just instills me with confidence. How about you guys? Kiefer Dam. That's what I've been doing. And I'm assuming Kiefer Dam is referring to on the job hunt, researching the companies you are applying to beforehand so you have something to say and know about the company. Because one of the worst things, I tell you what, thankfully it hasn't happened to me because my dad gave me this advice long ago, so I always did it anyway. But one of the most awkward situations you can find yourself in is if you go to apply for a job and in the middle of everything, the person interviewing you says, "Tell me something about this company." And if you are caught flat-footed on that one, boy, howdy. Not a good place to be. Not a good place to be. Eagle, you sure are asking Alaska. I know. Setting high standards for people, especially if they're going to take on responsibilities like that. I understand that is just not fashionable these days. I don't know why I have such a cynical opinion on such things. By the way, Monday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, will be the next episode of DEI Death Watch. I don't know why I brought that up just then, just for the hell of it. But lastly, guys, you know what I haven't heard about lately? Quite a while. I did some TEDx's on this. I did some other things on this. What happened to the Metaverse? Wasn't that supposed to be like absolutely altering every aspect of our life by now? Well, let's find out what the latest is. Tech promised virtual reality would revolutionize entertainment. That moment might finally be closer than we think. Well, I mean, if it is, it must be, because I don't think it's close at all. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are, but I still haven't been sold on having a giant and expensive piece of goggle kit on my face in order to just interact with things. Let's find out. Virtual reality was supposed to transform entertainment. At least, that was the expectation roughly a decade ago with the arrival of the Oculus Rift, the first virtual reality headset that many believe would push VR into the mainstream. And in 2025, the industry has failed to deliver on that promise. It's true. But tech and entertainment giants alike believe that moment could be closer than ever. They believe could than ever. The evidence is there. Well, if you cite a McKinsey study, I am going to laugh. The evidence is there. The Wall Street Journal, reported last month that Meta is in talks with Disney, A24, and other entertainment companies to produce immersive content for its Quest VR headsets. Apple announced an update to its Vision Pro headset in June, enabling users to share content with other headsets, ideal for watching movies together in 3D. Or you could come over to my house and watch it on my TV. Or, and I do this with my friend who lives elsewhere, you could just pull up the same movie on your computer and watch it together at the same time with your headphones on and talking to each other. I've done that. And I don't need to pay. How much was the Vision Pro headset again? Wasn't it something ridiculous like, my brain wants to say something like it was $3,000, but maybe it was just $1,500 or something. Wasn't the Vision Pro, when it first came out, just a ridiculous price point? Earlier this year, Apple also launched an immersive Metallica concert for the Vision Pro and announced in July it's readying its first upgrade to boost the Vision Pro's performance. Wow. Okay, straw poll. How many people in the chat own a Vision Pro? So just say own in the chat. Or you have been seriously thinking about getting one. Just say own or seriously in the chat. And if you have absolutely no intention of ever touching the thing, just say no. So you got three options. Own, seriously, no. Or nope, as Assassin of the Grey says. Or sorry, Hero Soldier. I saw Assassin of the Grey up there too. So own, seriously, nope. Straw poll. Just want to know. Taken together, this signals that tech and media behemoths are still betting that consumers will be willing to spend hundreds, if not thousands, to experience concerts, movies, and sporting events beyond the confines of a traditional screen. Yes, just a screen right up against your eyeballs. Because it is a traditional screen. It's just dualed. Let's see. We got a nope. We got a vision what? We got a I have no idea what that is. Angelverse says no. Also, hello, ignorers. Eagle says no. Read by Nature. If that's Apple's device, then it was $3,000. That's what I thought. I thought it was something like $299.99 or something. You know. Now, Mr. X, nope. Beaver Dam, yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. A chicken and the egg paradox. In the 10 plus years since Oculus debuted the Rift, headset manufacturers have produced lighter, more powerful devices. Meanwhile, companies are finally warming to the idea of another medium for storytelling. Tech companies have a history of flirting with VR projects aimed at mainstream users. You know, VR, very rudimentary VR, was a thing back when I was like 13 or 14 years old. They had these VR stations at the arcade. I know, an arcade, for those of you who are too young to remember this, an arcade was a place people went to play video games as a community. Crazy, I know. Now you have to go to these Dave and Buster's things to do it or whatever, but whatever. Like, local arcades were a thing. And they had these two little stations. They were pods that you stood in, and they were kind of barricaded you in, and you were given giant goggles on your head, and you had a little controller in your hand, and you could, like, shoot giant block pixels at each other from across platforms and stuff. And everyone's like, oh my God, VR is the way of the future. And then we had, like, you know, VR fighters on the arcade machine. And then you had, like, when the Star Wars version came out, it was Terrace Kasai or Kasei or however you say it. It was like Luke Skywalker doing Kung Fu against Boba Fett. Yeah. That was when I was 14. I'm 46 now. I haven't used a VR anything since I was 14. Somehow, I'm getting along just fine. Tech companies have a history of flirting with VR projects aimed at mainstream users. In June, Meta offered live virtual rink-side tickets to Stanley Cup games, echoing previous NBA and WNBA offerings. Headset owners have attended virtual concerts for years, including Apple's immersive Alicia Keys session and Meta's Blackpink show. Boy, guys, I can't tell you how I feel like I FOMO'd on Alicia Keys and Blackpink. Disney even launched a Disney Plus app for Apple's Vision Pro on day one in 2024. Wow, another failed endeavor from Disney Plus. I'm shocked. But these have been pilots to gauge interest, not long-term investments. Historically, headsets have been trapped in a chicken and egg paradox. To woo entertainment content, they need mass adoption. But to reach that scale, headsets need premium content. You know what you should do? You should sell the headsets for practically nothing. And then use them as the gateway for the purchases. This is what, you know, the Amazon Fire was kind of smart for. The Amazon Fire is a working tablet. It's relatively cheap. I think I got mine for like $35. But it's not the tablet that they're selling. It is the gateway to convenience to using Amazon to buy more things. So if you make the headset cost somebody like $50, but then you microtransaction them to death through all the things they try to get through the headset, then that's where you make your money. But a $3,000 or several $100 or whatever price tag on just the equipment to use the thing, yeah, that's a tough sell. The technology must also be comfortable, powerful, and popular enough to gain mass appeal. See, I don't know that I could ever use that stuff because I have to wear glasses. And I swear, I have yet to see any kind of over-the-face contraption for anything that makes it feel comfortable to wear glasses and that thing at the same time. For Sarah Malkin, director of entertainment content for Meta's VR division, Reality Labs, that cycle is already being broken. Is it? How much did you guys spend on the Metaverse? Wasn't it something like $10 billion? And we all know how ubiquitous the Metaverse is for us right now, right? Quote, I think the it moment is when you are regularly engaging in experiences in mixed reality that are super complementary and part of your integrated life, Malkin told CNN. To me, that's already happening.
What? You gotta be fucking kidding. right?
Global shipments of augmented reality AR and VR headsets increased by about 10% in 2024 to 7.5 million and nearly 30.8% to 3.4 million in the US, according to IDC, a global market intelligence and data company. Although IDC predicts shipments around the world will tumble this year due to delayed product launches, it expects a massive rebound in 2026, with worldwide shipments surging 98.5% to 11.3 million. Wow, guys. Wow. So it expects a 80% increase of worldwide sales in the next year from previous. Oh, okay. However, the results haven't always lived up to the hype. The results haven't always lived up to the hype. I don't think the hype has lived up to the hype. But anyway, Mark Zuckerberg's Metaverse has cost Meta... Oh, shit! Oh, Jesus! Whoa! Whoa! Oh, I thought it was bad. I didn't think it was that. Mark Zuckerberg's Metaverse has cost Meta $46 billion over 3 years. $46 billion? He has spent $15 billion every year for the last 3 years on this. Just stop and think about that for a second. $15 billion a year on this one project that has seen zero movement. Zero place in society, culture, or the zeitgeist at all. I mean, this is the Avatar movie series of stupid investments. Like Avatar makes, it made $2 billion at the theater. Nobody gives a shit about Avatar. Like, somehow it makes all this money. Nobody cares. No footprint whatsoever on the culture. $15 billion a year. And, I was doing TEDx talks on the metaverse and some other things back when it was like at its height. And I kept, the promise is here. It's coming, guys. There were, I can't count how many TEDx talks I skipped over that were extolling the virtues and the future of the metaverse. Because there were so many of them. Everyone was so excited. Oh my God, the metaverse. Except that got replaced with AI. Everybody's like, AI. Yeah, Cthulhu Fatagan. $46 billion over 3 years. Reality Labs, the company's VR division, posted $4.2 billion in operating loss and just $412 million in sales in Q1, down from the previous quarter. $15 billion a year, $4.2 billion in operating loss, and not even $500 million in the first quarter, and that's lower than the previous quarter. But, okay, talk about burying lead. But, however, the results haven't always lived up to the hype. No, what you're telling me is there are no results. To say that the results haven't lived up, there would need to be results in the first place. There have been zero results. But tech giants continue to experiment with the technology, at $15 billion a year. Meta invested $3.5 billion in eyewear manufacturer Elisor Luxottica SA to bolster its AI spectacle gambit, according to Bloomberg. There's another $3.5 billion in the trash pile. A Meta spokesperson declined to comment on the report. Yeah, I bet. Snap recently said it plans to launch new augmented reality spectacles next year, and Google continues to work with partners like Xreal and Samsung on upcoming headsets and glasses that run on its new Android XR software. Samsung will also be among the first to launch such a device with its upcoming Project Muhan headset. At least it's not the Project Wuhan headset. That does a whole other thing. I hate to tell you this. As someone who has lived with glasses my entire life, practically since I was 6 years old, if you don't have to wear glasses for casual use, most people would choose not to. So turning this into something as casual wear as reality spectacles that even people that don't need glasses would have to wear, I don't know if that's a very appealing sales pitch. And then a bunch of pictures. With more sophisticated hardware and a budding content portfolio, Bertrand Nepveu, a former Vision Pro contributor and partner at Triptych Capital, said wider adoption is crucial. Well, thank you for that amazing insight, Bertrand. People would have to widely adopt this thing for any of this to make any sense. Quote, it's still early. Bertrand, again, VR has been around since I was a kid. It's not early. Nobody is going to adopt this on a mass scale. It's been tried. It's not going to... Bertrand, $15 billion a year in Meta. $15 billion a year in Meta. Can you imagine what that $15 billion could have done elsewise? Since it was just throwing it onto a garbage pile and lighting it on fire anyway, you might as well have just given me $15 billion. I could have found much more productive ways to use $15 billion than trying to go after the pipe dream that is mass adoption of VR headsets and microtransactions therein. It's a novelty. It's a gimmick. It's still early, but there's no technical limitation right now. It's more that we need people to invest because you need a critical mass, he told CNN. There's an amazing article out there. I wish I could remember the author, where he spent a month, I think it was a month, in Meta's Horizons 3D Metaverse space. And it is this, it's an incredible piece of literature, because it really is. I wish I could find it. If somebody else can find it, but it was like, I spent a month in Meta's New Horizons or whatever it was called, and all I found was like loneliness, sadness, and depression. And it's honestly, I think I heard Kira TV on his YouTube channel. I think he read the entire article verbatim. I went and read some of it myself independently. It was the worst possible sales pitch for this idea in the first place because of the results. It was something. If somebody in the chat can look that up and find a link to it or something, let me know and I'll send it out, because everybody should take some time to read it. It's an amazing story of what that guy found by spending real time and dedication in trying to immerse himself in the world of the online metaverse. A paradigm shift in content. Although big names like James Cameron and Sabrina Carpenter, I still don't understand some of the celebrity that comes about. Like, why is Sabrina Carpenter famous? Is she another sort of a manufactured pop star? Anyway, are already beginning to explore VR. Immersive storytelling has yet to gain that crucial widespread popularity. Slow growth can be partially attributed to incorrect assumptions by studios. Quote, you can't just take the flat version of what you put on Disney Plus or Netflix or Amazon and just throw that up, said Jenna Seaton, a industry consultant and advisor who has worked with Skydance Media, Niantic, CAA, and Xbox, told CNN. You need to build natively to the audience, so the audience is going to have a different experience per platform. Yeah, except the barrier to entry is I have to pay $3,000 in order to have that unique experience, which I probably also have to pay for as well. When I have an endless supply of things to watch and things to learn with my basic flat screen television and a Netflix account. You know, with the money I could spend on one headset from Apple, I could fund my Netflix account for, 15 years or something? It's like, come on. It's silly. While creating Meta for virtual and mixed reality may seem like a departure from developing content for 2D screens, Seaton says the secret to success is a tactic media companies are already familiar with: exclusivity. Look, quote, you look at the creation of HBO Max. Yeah, how'd that work out? You look at the creation of Apple TV Plus. They grew their audiences based on exclusives. Well, yeah, they also portioned off the number of people who are willing to pay for extra streaming services all the time for one or two things that kind of look interesting. That's been my personal experience. Anyway, that's why you went to them, Seaton said. Quote, I think that model is very familiar to entertainment companies, and they can go to their board saying, hey, this is how platforms grow, with exclusive content. Yeah, tell that to Quibi. Tell that to Quibi. Quibi had exclusive content. Totally exclusive content. You couldn't get it anywhere else. It was so exclusive, nobody saw it. That's what makes live virtual sports an easy way to break down extended reality barriers for audiences. Yeah, you know, guys, admittedly, I'm not a sports guy. I confess. If I ever watch sports, it's usually the championship stuff. Maybe, like the World Series or the championship game for the NBA or something. Or curling. Okay. But when I have watched sports events, you know what's going on when I watch sports events? I'm with other people. I'm with friends or acquaintances, or I'm, ideally in some cases actually at a stadium. Can you imagine the fun you're going to have with everybody in the room with a headset strapped to their eyeballs, sitting there on the couch, trying to enjoy each other's company for a sporting event? Anyway, Paul Raphael, co-founder of Felix and Paul, said sports can be easily adapted for immersive platforms using 180-degree cameras. Maybe. How are you going to 180-degree camera? So you're going to put a camera at the sporting event that films everything in 180 degrees, so I can look behind me and spy on the attendants there and watch the crowd? Or you already have, and who gets to pick the seating? Like, is it courtside seating, and is it like center court? You just reserve that in every game or something? Somebody else can't have it in real life. You already have quite a few events in sports being broadcast, whether it's live or asynchronous, Raphael said. Quote, as the audience grows, it's a really straightforward path to create the content or to broadcast the content, unquote. But I still need to buy the headset, right? For Hollywood, the possibility of a new major distribution platform couldn't come at a better time. Guys, 3 years, $15 billion a year. In today's fracturing media environment, shaken by streaming, the collapse of the cable bundle, and post-COVID box office was, the aftermath of COVID, you would think, have been the perfect opportunity for something like this to happen because it's all in-house. It's all separate. You don't have to interact with other people. But anyway, a new medium could be a crucial selling point, especially for entertainment boards looking for a new revenue vein. New. How long has the Oculus Rift been around again? When did that first come out? 2018, 2019 or something? How long ago was the Oculus Rift? Jack Davis, co-founder of Crypt TV. Is it like Tales from the, or is it some kind of like street gang thing? Said headsets might provide a much-needed pipeline for premium content. Okay, thanks, guy who founded Crypt TV that I've never heard of before. Quote, as gigantic structural changes happen in TV and film, the industry is going to need to replace those things in the aggregate, Davis said. This could be one of the only formats that premium entertainment actually seems like it makes sense for the user base, unquote. What user base? What user base? Budgetary and content hurdles. Over the past decade, investment in VR has been eclipsed by more pressing innovations, including self-driving cars and AI. Oh, yeah. I think AI probably more than self-driving cars. And is self-driving cars really a pressing innovation? Although it's difficult to determine how that has directly impacted XR investment. Well, then, if you don't know how it's impacted it, then what are you reporting on? Funding data from Crunchbase, a predictive company intelligence solution. Is this just one big ad for these assessment and aggregators? Shows that backing for AI and self-driving has steadily increased, rising from $39.96 billion in 2019 to $105.36 billion by 2025. Meanwhile, XR funding has experienced more erratic behavior, reaching a peak of $4.087 billion in 2021, but dropping to $347.69 million by 2025. Well, don't worry. Meta's on track for another $15 billion this year. Things were much the same in the venture capital world, where the number of global VR deals has also dropped in recent years. PitchBook, which examines private equity and VC deals, advertisement, notes that 2019 was the largest year for VC deals in VR in the last decade, recording $6.3 billion in deals worldwide. Wow. That was significantly smaller than the $57.084 billion from AI-focused venture capitalists that year. In 2025, VR VCs have fallen to only $3.61 billion in global deals, while AI VCs have grown to $130.89 billion. But NEPVU says that's changing. Oh, wow, it's changing? So will the VR VCs go up to like $5 billion? As opposed to the AI VCs that go up to $145 billion? Wow. Quote, now that AI is more understood, you know what it's good for, what it's not capable of. The budgets are now going back to XR, NEPVU claimed. Yeah, claimed being the operative word there. Oh yeah, guys, we're going to see a real sea change. That $130.89 billion that was going to AI, yeah, just see the balance of that now flipping over to VR. I swears. Still, tech giants investing in the development of mixed reality headsets face a daunting challenge that extends beyond the entertainment available. They need to convince consumers that the devices are both worth paying for and putting on their faces. That's partially why Apple emphasized the Vision Pro as a spatial computing tool, focusing on work and productivity rather than just 2D and 3D entertainment capabilities. Still, even a decade later, because guys, it's only been a decade that VR has been around. It's only been a decade. Experts can't seem to agree on exactly when VR will have its breakout moment. NEPVU said it could happen any day. Guys, we just have to wait a little longer. I'm sure the bus is on its way. It's been 10 years, what they say, but any minute now, guys. That gravy train is coming. I can I can hear it on the horizon. Can't you? If you just listen really, really hard, just squeeze your eyes real tight, just hear it. Here it is. It's up somewhere. It's out. Nepfu said it could happen any day. Raphael expected 1 or 2 years. Davis suggested 3 to 7. Seiden said 5 to 10. Guys, it's somewhere between any day now and 10 years. After the first 10 years. Raphael, however, believes 2D content may soon feel as dated as pre-Technicolor entertainment. Oh. Quote, content, the way it is consumed today, is going to be much like we think of black and white movies, where if a film isn't immersive, it doesn't lose its value, but it becomes something of another era, Raphael said. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. There you go. That is the latest and the greatest on VR, meta, immersive reality entertainment. You know, just buy the headset, the wired, limited mobility, uncomfortable, claustrophobic, ridiculously expensive headset, guys. Okay. Be prepared for all of the microtransactions therein you'll have to pay on top of the hardware. Any day now, guys, it'll be worth it. We swears, we promise, we swears, we promise. Faustonia, already my family members have are welded to their phones in the living room, ignoring each other when I go visit them. And now with VR, it could be even worse. Yeah, I remember. I used to have people over to my apartment to hang out. Lots of times. We'd sit around, watch movies, joke, and everything. And I remember a very distinct turning point. Speaking of pivot points or turning points, I had some people over one day, and every single one of them had their nose buried in a phone, and they weren't even paying attention to the thing we were watching. They weren't paying attention to each other. It was silent. You could hear a pin drop. And I thought it was I was the only person there that didn't have a smartphone. And I was looking at these guys, these people I'd known for years, people who in any other circumstance, if they didn't have their phones in their hand, would have amazing conversations about things that I knew they were each interested in, one to another, and nothing. It was one of the most depressing, awkward, eerie experiences I had had at that point in a social setting. It was so bizarre. And I was like, "What? Why did you even show up? What was the point of this?" I mean, ugh. But let's see. Red Feather 1, Jesus might return before the product gains traction. I know, it's possible. I mean, any day now for 10 years, guys. Morgan King, I have a VR headset and I do not use it. I mean, if I had one right now, I don't know why I would use it that much. I like being able to move through the world and get up. I can't sit still that long anyway. It's not like I have restless leg syndrome or ADHD or something. I just need to move around. Having to sit relatively still and sit on a couch with a VR headset with screen up to my face so I can virtually watch a sports game. Every time that I want to get up to go to the bathroom or get a snack or something, I have to take off the headset and the earphones and set it aside. And if it's a live game, I can't just have the TV on in the background where I can still hear what's going on and feel like I'm connected with the events. No, I have to, and then put the goggles back on and then sit there and think about how ridiculous I look to the outside world if somebody walked in the room. Yeah. Anyway, there you go, guys. That is DogCatFox and Friend going 2 hours. I hadn't planned on going 2 hours, but some of those articles were a lot longer than I imagined they would be. There you go. That's your breakdown of different news stories over the course of the week. And as I said, the super secret thing I took part in earlier this morning will be made readily apparent on Mondays, Midnight's Edge in the morning. Granted that when I pitch it to Andre and Tom, they actually are interested enough to want to talk about it. It's no fault on them if they don't. I mean, it's kind of a niche thing, but I think it's Midnight's Edge relevant. But I'll talk about that then or at some other point in the near future. And then Monday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time will be the next episode of DEI Death Watch, where I've got a couple of fun stories. I got some stuff out of Columbia University. I got some stuff from a cell phone company. Oh boy, it's going to be great. And outside of that, that's the show. Did you know I have a Discord server? Well, if you didn't know I have a Discord server, consider yourself educated. And if you'd like to join the Discord server, a link to the Discord server is in the chat right now. Click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. In addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me you're not a bot, have actually watched the stream, and thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is adoption. Hello, adoption. Just say hello, adoption in the Discord server, and I'll know that you watched the show. And as always, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, you can find me here for TED Excellence. I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk. I have several options lined up, but who knows what TEDx might drop in the meantime, but I've got plenty of backups if they don't put up anything interesting between now and Wednesday. So there you go, guys. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or the GoFundMe at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so very much for your generosity. Very much appreciate it. If you have not already, please do leave a like on your way out and or share the stream either here or over on the X machine, where it is also simulcasting. And everyone, have a good rest of your Saturday. I hope you have a good Sunday as well ahead of you and week. And I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.